Hello, everyone. I'm Katie Pavlich, along with Molly Line, Jason Chaffetz, and Gianno Caldwell, and welcome to the Big Weekend Show. The big story tonight. Panicked Democrats in a frenzy to replace President Biden after his disastrous debate performance. Staunch Biden allies and liberal media all agree Biden couldn't quell concerns about his age Thursday night, and the party is scrambling.
What I've been able to do with the COVID, with dealing with everything we have to do with, look, if we finally beat Medicare.
Kind of a DEFCON 1 moment. They're 3 years apart. They seemed about 30 years apart tonight.
The impact on the choice that black families have to make relative to child care.
That was painful. I love Joe Biden. I worked for Joe Biden. He didn't do well at all. He did not do well at all.
What I'm going to do is fix the tax system. For example, we have 1,000 trillionaires in America. Billionaires in America.
Blame it on a cold, blame it on his stuttering, blame it on over-preparation, whatever. But he did lose. Maybe he needs to go.
Pretty brutal. Now, Democrats are taking a look at their high-profile bench of leftists to find an alternate candidate if they can convince Biden to step down. Fox News correspondent Christina Coleman explains.
Katie, minutes after President Joe Biden was helped off the debate stage after his rough performance, a number of names were floated as his possible replacement. Let's start off with a Democrat who has put himself on the national stage in a big way, California Governor Gavin Newsom. Though conservatives could easily slam him over the high taxes, chronic homelessness, and crime in California, this man stays in front of the cameras. Some political analysts believe he's been running a shadow campaign. Another name that's gotten a lot of buzz is Michigan Governor Gretchen Whitmer. The second-term governor helped flip both chambers of the state legislature blue with her fight for abortion rights, a key issue among Democrats this election season. And in addition to being a swing state, Michigan is also home to one of the largest Muslim and Arab American communities in the U.S. So having Whitmer on the presidential ticket might help with voters who have stopped supporting Biden over the war in Gaza. And we can't go without mentioning former First Lady Michelle Obama and Vice President Kamala Harris. Both women are very popular among Democrats. The Washington Post included them in a list of potential Biden replacements, in addition to Democrat Josh Shapiro, who won a solid victory for governorship in 2022 in Pennsylvania, a purple state which is critical for the Democrats' hopes of winning the White House this November. Katie?
Thanks, Christina. So according to new polling, more than 60% of all voters who watched his disastrous debate think Biden should definitely or probably be replaced as the Democratic nominee. And that includes half of the Democrats who watched. So someone who was in the spin room and at the debate was, of course, Governor Gavin Newsom of California.
Surprise,
and he was asked directly about whether they should abandon Biden. And this is what he had to say.
Take on about replacing President Biden. Do you support that idea?
I will never turn my back on President Biden. Never turn my back on President Biden. I don't know a Democrat in my party that would do so, and especially after tonight. We have his back. We run not the 90-yard dash. We are all in. We're going to double down in the next few months. We're going to win this election.
There's a few Democrats who have turned their back, but the White House is not doing that either. Senior advisor Anita Dunn had this to say about the path forward.
The conversation that we had is, okay, what do we do next? Okay, that is, if there's one thing that we're about, it's, okay, as Barack Obama said, bad debates happen. We had a bad debate. What do we do next? And, you know, the president, above all, is focused on what do we do next? What do I need to go do? And I think you saw in North Carolina, he knew exactly what he needed to do yesterday.
So, Jason, the question everyone wants to know is this happening? And if so, how could it happen? It's not very simple.
Well, I think they're all right. They have to come up with a new candidate because Joe Biden, he can't get through the next 4 months, let alone another 4 years. But elections are not run by the Democratic Party. They are not run by the federal government. Elections are run by states, and each state has its own statute. You can't just go in and replace one and say, oh, well, Joe had a bad debate and he's failing, and so we're going to go ahead and put in Gretchen or Gavin or Kamala. That doesn't work that way. Many of these deadlines have come and gone. You cannot do this. Short of death in most states, you cannot actually replace somebody on the ballot. Ask RFK Jr. He can't even get on the ballot in many of these states. So they think they can just come up with a new name in August. They have another thing coming. They're going to get entailed and ingrained in these lawsuits because you cannot just simply make that change.
So, Gianno, I mean, didn't Democrats do this to themselves? I mean, it's not like they haven't had this conversation for months and it really got highlighted during the debate, but they didn't want to have a primary process. They didn't want to have debates in the primary, so here they are.
I mean, they lied, and they lied some more. And the nerve of Gavin Newsom, and when I see him, he reminds me of a supervillain in a cartoon, the kind of guy that'll push his grandmother down the stairs if it'll get him votes. To your point, Jason, I got to tell you, they can't replace him because places like Wisconsin and Nevada is already too late. In Georgia, there's only a few weeks. So there's not much that they can do. And you got people like Barack Obama and Bill Clinton who already said he's going to be in there. So they're going to stand behind him because they simply have no choice, despite the fact what he's doing to the country, not being capable of actually governing for the next 4 months.
Right?
That's the bigger issue. What's going on today? Not even an election at this point.
So, Molly, while a number of these big Democrats in the party, powerful Democrats, even including the former president, are stepping behind Joe Biden, lots of members of the coalition in terms of media and activists are calling for Biden to step down, including the New York Times. There's an op-ed that calls for him to leave the race. It says, to serve his country, President Biden should leave the race. Another one calls on Biden to, then says that the clearest path for Democrats to defeat a candidate defined by his lies, they're talking about Trump, is to deal truthfully with the American public, acknowledge that Mr. Biden can't continue his race and create a process to select someone more capable to stand in his place to defeat Mr. Trump in November. So this is what they're dealing with.
This is very possibly something that'll just make President Biden dig in his heels even more and say, I'm going to push back about all the naysayers. And great points made here that the Democrats have known what they've been doing.
Exactly right.
Known what they are dealing with this entire time, particularly high-level Democrats. And that's why we're not seeing the number of press conferences from this president that we've seen from prior presidents. So I think he's going to dig in his heels. And as far as another candidate ultimately stepping in or taking over, you notice that little pause that Newsom had, like, an unanticipated question.
I hate this question.
Yeah,
I hate it. It's the worst.
I never imagined I would.
I'm up next.
Yeah, I know. The other thing is that they can, hold steady, keep to this candidate, and ultimately end up with a President Kamala Harris, if not actually physically occurring, perhaps stepping in de facto multiple times over the course of an aging president's presidency, build her up. And that's one of the challenges the Democratic Party is facing, is they don't have this deep bench of younger Democrats that are coming up, and this would give a chance to build her up along the way. And see how things...
And notice who's not being talked about is the vice president, which could create a whole nother problem for them if they were to try and move forward with this.